Hey gunfighters, if you've been into shooting for a day, you've probably heard of Remington. Remington Arms, I would say is or was, depending on what happens with the company, one of the great American firearms manufacturers. They have made some really good firearms over the years. Some of them mainstays that we know, the 700, the 870. Some not so much, but are still good guns, just lesser known. That's what we're going to talk about today. Lesser known Remington firearms. Welcome to the podcast, where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way, with God Almighty at the center, biblical Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Bio bullet points in the show notes, guys. Military, law enforcement, private security, contracting, hunting, background. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and fingers for battle. Okay, now Remington, the status, unknown to me. I don't have any insider information on this. They don't seem to be making new firearms. I can't see them available anywhere like in stock. I haven't heard that they're out of business again. If you're not familiar, they got sued a couple of times with their 700 trigger, with the Bushmaster debacle. This litigious society we've lived in decided to sue Remington, and they tried to come back. I don't know how that's going, but whether they come back or not, or whether they're bought out by another company, the new Remington will not be the old Remington. Maybe they'll be great, maybe they won't. But old Remington is a legendary firearms manufacturer. They've made some amazing, amazing guns like the 870, the 1100, right? The 700, the 760, legendary firearms in American history. Not to mention making various weapons for military contracts and things. I'm mostly talking today about the civilian Remingtons, right? So let's start out. You probably know the 700. Legendary, simple, pretty symmetrical, easy to tune, why gunsmiths love them. Bolt action rifle. It's a big competitor to the Model 70. Well, you may not be aware of the Model 7. Not 700, just 7. And it's usually spelled out as in writing the word 7. And that is a phenomenal firearm. It's a light, handy, smaller, like carbine version of the Remington 700. If the Remington 700 is the rifle, the 7 is the carbine. It's a phenomenal gun, available, I think, only in a short action, but available, I know for sure, in a 223, things like a 308, 7mm 08, and some other calibers. A phenomenal, phenomenal choice for light, handy carry, a light, handy carbine, and just a really good rifle. Just can't say enough good things about that little rifle. It's a great rifle. If you like the 700 but you want a lighter carbine version of it, the Model 7. And that's not the only one. There are some other really cool bolt-action rifles that Remington made. There's a whole family I'm going to put into the one category, kind of the Mohawk category, and that is the 600, the 660, and the 673. These are all really cool rifles, also kind of carbines. They're varying features. Some of the really cool features that they sported were a dog leg bolt, like a bolt that's bent like a leg, so that when you come off the bolt, your finger is already aligned with the trigger to make for really fast follow-up shots with a bolt-action rifle. This is a really cool feature. It kind of gives it away when you see that rifle, that dog leg. It's a really cool idea. Maybe it just cost more to manufacture, so they didn't continue that on, but really cool nonetheless. They also sometimes will sport a shotgun rib with iron sights on it for quick, handy, like brush hunting and shooting, animals on the move, for driven hunts and things like that. Things we don't do a lot of here in America, or a lot of people don't. A lot of people here just, sit on a bait pile or hunt out of a tree stand, which is whatever, which doesn't really give you an advantage. But if you're shooting moving targets or shooting fast follow-up shots, that, shotgun rib with the iron sights on it, that's a pretty cool thing. So again, that's the Mohawk I'm going to call them the Mohawk family. I think the Mohawk only applied to one of them, but it's basically the 600, the 660, and the 673. They went away for a while, and then the newer one, the 673, came out to reintroduce it. They came in some pretty standard calibers, and they came in some cool calibers like the 350 Remington Magnum and the 6.5 Remington Magnum. I think, sadly, we're ahead of their time, but I'm going to digress on that because we're talking about unknown Remington guns today, not cartridges. But that Mohawk line is a really, really cool gun. Now another one, the Remington 788. This is a really cool gun. The 788 is a bolt-action rifle, but apart from that, it's very different from most bolt-action rifles. Instead of 2 or 3 big locking lugs in the front, the locking lugs are in the rear of the bolt. And instead of having 2 or 3, it has, I think, 9. It's kind of like the Weatherby Mark V action, but in reverse, meaning the lugs are in the back. Now, in theory, this may be a less strong action than the lugs in the front because the steel in the bolt could get compressed more, but I think this is in theory. I think in reality, they're probably fine guns. I think they were introduced, I could be wrong about this, but like as a budget line rifle for Remington. But by all accounts, and from people I've heard from, they're really, really good, accurate rifles. The 788, kind of a cool, handy little carbine rifle, box magazine, I believe. Just a little bit different than what you would normally see in a bolt-action rifle, like the Model 70 or the 700. Some cool features, really cool bolt design, and again, by all accounts, a really, really cool rifle. I don't know if they just were too different. A lot of times American gun culture shucks what's different. Maybe they were just too different. Maybe there's some issue I'm not aware of. I've never owned one, but I am aware of them. They've been around a long time. A lot of people that have them, again, still like them, still use them. They're a really cool rifle, really cool bolt design. Another one, going to shotguns, the 887. Yeah, the last one was a 788. This one's the 887. They probably did that on purpose. But the 887 is a 12-gauge shotgun, or was a 12-gauge shotgun, which is kind of cool. Again, kind of different like the 788 in that it's like a shotgun M&M. What do I mean by that? Like a peanut M&M, you get a peanut and you coat it in chocolate and a candy coating, right? With this, you kind of take a metal shotgun and you dip it in a plastic coating and maybe put some paint on the outside. And this is a pretty cool practical idea for a pump shotgun because pump shotguns are some of the most legendarily rugged and reliable, hard use, hard conditions, mud, salt water, snow, ice, firearms, right? They get used in some really austere conditions. And it kind of makes sense to dip one in plastic, right? And this is what the 887 did. It dipped it in plastic. A really cool gun. I've seen a few over the years. I've thought about getting them. I really toyed with the idea over time, but honestly, I have enough pump action shotguns, right? But it's a really, really cool idea to dip even the barrel, not just the receiver, but the barrel and everything, coated in plastic because obviously, right, plastic doesn't rust. So and I've never seen one come delaminated. I've never seen it come apart. Whatever process they used on that, because they're pretty old at this point, they don't seem to have ever come apart. So that seems like an ingenious idea to make something that's really rugged and reliable, even more rugged and reliable, and dipping it in polymer. That is a really cool all-around shotgun. I don't think they ever made any like combat models. I think it was strictly like a hunting shotgun. But if you see one at a gun show or a gun store, and you want just like a rugged, reliable waterfowl gun, goose gun, turkey gun, anything like that, right? That would be a really, really good choice. Not highly coveted, not highly sought after, but a really cool gun. Another one that is kind of coveted, I think, and sought after is the Remington Versamax. The Versamax was Remington's copy of the Benelli M4. I don't know if they licensed the copy or whatever, but if you look at the operating system, it looks very similar to an M4 with that dual pistons on the bottom of the barrel. You'd have to look up the development of that and see if it was just a licensed copy of the of the Benelli M4, probably the most rugged and dependable semi-auto combat shotgun on the planet. And this was that adapted for hunting. So if you're looking for, again, a rock-solid, rugged, reliable semi-auto, the Remington Versamax. Didn't make them for very long. I think it happened not long before, the company kind of started going downhill. But that Remington Versamax is freaking awesome. It's an awesome gun. It's basically a Benelli M4 made for hunting instead of made for combat. So really cool idea, really cool gun. Now let's talk about rimfires. Remington has made a lot of bolt actions over the years, especially, early 20th century. That's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the Remington Speedmaster. I did own one of these for a short time. I sold it. I probably should have kept it, but I lived it as a nomad for most of my adult life, and you can only have so many guns. But the Remington Speedmaster is a really, really cool gun. It is a semi-auto 22 long rifle. You might be thinking, so what? There's plenty of those. There's the Marlin Model 60. There's the Ruger 1022. So who cares? Well, the Speedmaster is a bit different in that it's not just a 22 long rifle. It's a 22 short, long, and long rifle. It's a semi-auto that will feed all of those. It will feed all of those. Now, there's a lot of lever actions and there's a lot of, bolt action rifles that will feed shorts, longs, and long rifles because you, the operator, are manually operating that action. So however much power the cartridge holds, that's the word I was trying to think of, however much power the cartridge holds doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to the cycling of that weapon because you manually cycle it. However, with a semi-auto, in general, like a 1022, it's almost certainly not going to feed shorts well. And if you get it to feed shorts well by doing spring kits and stuff like that, it's probably not good to feed other ammo through it. The Speedmaster is unique in that you can feed shorts, longs, and long rifles. Why is this important? Well, it also came with a fairly long barrel, so you could shoot shorts or calibres out of it. And so long as it cycles, I don't know if it'll cycle every ammo. I don't know any 22 that will cycle really any ammo unless it's a revolver. Assuming it'll cycle it, you could get a really quiet semi-auto gun with no suppressor. That's pretty cool. Also, if you've lived through ammo shortages in your lifetime, and I've lived through a few, a lot of times 22 long rifle can be really hard to get for years. Well, it's sometimes easier to get shorts and longs. Why? Because the vast majority of people that have 22s, rimfires, have 22 long rifle. Not a lot of people have the longs or the shorts. So in an ammo shortage, not like a complete apocalypse, but like it's just hard to get ammo, you may easily be able to find, like, let's say a bunch of 22 longs, which are fine, right? And you can fire those. So that's a really cool idea and a really cool gun. And it was a really nice gun, really elegant, like old school, classic, American manufacturing Remington semi-auto, the Speedmaster, a really cool gun. Now we're going to close it out with handguns. No, and I'm not talking about like the old Remington New Army or whatever it was. No. I'm talking about modern handguns made by Remington. Remington bought up Para Ordnance shortly before they went under. Not Para, but shortly before Remington went under. I think this was a shame because Para made some really, really phenomenal guns. Para Ordnance, that is. They were a mainstay in the early 2000s, going back into the 90s for competition shooting. Well, Remington bought them up, and they made their own line of the 1911, the Remington R1. The Remington R1, I believe, a decent, although short-lived, variant of the 1911. So if you see one and you just love Remington, you can get a Remington 1911. And I'm not talking about the old military like Remington Rand, which I think was a different company, but like a new-ish, they're a few years old at this point, but a new-ish, modern, with good features, 1911 made by Remington, the Remington R1, a pretty cool thing. Okay, they also made a handgun that flopped hard, like it went down hard. The Remington R51, and I really wanted one of these. And guess what? I bought one, and I almost immediately got rid of it. But the Remington R1 Maybe I should have kept it if I was a collector, but the Remington R1 was a really funky design, completely different operating system. I don't know if I could tell you anymore how it works in my head, but a really funky different operating system. You had to like pull the barrel out and like hold it with a pair of pliers to disassemble the gun. Really funky system. It was supposed to be a really cool concealed carry gun, which all would have been well and good, except for didn't seem to work very well. So there's that. But if you're just going to shoot it for fun, you're not going to carry it to depend your life on it, and you just want a funky Remington handgun, those are not coveted right now. I assume in like 50 years, they will be a highly coveted gun because they weren't made very long before they dropped it. They work, they're just not super reliable. So if you wanted a fun gun to shoot and collect that you weren't going to bet your life on, that Remington R51. And they also have kind of this like 1950s like space age era, you know what I'm talking about? Like that everything's kind of rounded and like fins and like 1950s style. The gun looks like that. It'd actually be kind of cool to see one on like white and Tiffany blue, like that 1950s look, or chrome and Tiffany blue. But anyway, really different looking handgun, really cool handgun that didn't work that well. But the Remington R51. So that's my list of forgotten Remingtons. I threw this out there, and one of the patrons mentioned the Nylon 66 and 77. I thought those were pretty famous. Like, I thought those were kind of legendary firearms. But hey, that's maybe it's because I'm a gun nerd. If you don't know, the Nylon 66 and also the 77, these were like back when pretty much the vast majority of guns, they probably weren't the first one, right? Because the M16, the AR-15 have been around since the 50s. But an early gun that used heavy use of polymers on the commercial market, the Nylon 66, like a budget 22 rifle, but has become a highly coveted collector item, the Nylon 66/77. These are cool Remington guns. Yeah, that's about it, guys. Not a lot of deep thought here, just a fun episode on forgotten Remingtons. With everything that Remington is going through, I thought it'd be good to remember the old Remington, the Remington of our youth. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a blessed day.